Hey guys, just a friendly reminder to make sure you go subscribe to Rojas Media Podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast for sports takes, opinions, interviews, and more. That's Rojas Media Podcast, streaming wherever you get your podcast fix. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of Sixers Weekly. I am your host, Francisco Rojas, along with my boy Raji here. Man, I'm really excited. We got NBA basketball tipping off around the holidays.
Yep.
I think, what's funny? I think a lot of fans kind of wanted this in a way. This year has sucked, obviously, with the pandemic, the coronavirus. But I think, for the NBA, I think it's a good thing for them to start, around Christmas time. I don't think we're getting the Christmas Day games that we wanted. There's a lot of matchups there where it's just like, why didn't you get somebody else, somebody notable?
Yeah.
It could have been better, but at the end of the day, I think this is a good start. I think. To start, even though we didn't say we were going to talk about this, do you want them to, maybe start off around this time every year, or do you want it to go back to, October, November-ish start, or are you cool with
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I've always been a fan of shorter NBA seasons. The games mean more. Nobody really watches the NBA until Christmas. I mean, I do because I'm a big fan, but like for most casual, sports fans, and even like on ESPN and stuff, usually it's all football up until Christmas Day, and then that's where basketball starts to kick off. And so I think 82 games is unnecessary. It opens the door for a lot of injuries and stuff. So there's no reason not to. They definitely can't miss Christmas Day. That's the one money making day. So I think starting around this time every year would just be perfect.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of fans, it's Christmas and then it's the All-Star break, and then once it's after the All-Star break, it's like, all right, it's getting close to playoffs. Let's pay attention. And
Yeah.
then obviously people are paying attention by the playoffs. So,
Right.
but you're cool with a shortened season. You would rather do 72 than 82.
Yeah, I mean, if it was up to me, I would do somewhere in the 60s even. Have every team play each other twice and then get to the playoffs,
But then you're gonna have those people that say, well, now stats are gonna be distorted and everything. Why are we gonna mess with that? It's been 80 games for a while, but that's just there's always gonna be that with the fans. There's always gonna be some type of backlash. So I think that's just the way it is. But I agree with you. I think especially the way fans complained about the regular season not mattering as much.
Yeah.
Maybe if you shorten it, maybe it'll put more emphasis, on regular season games,
Right.
For them to matter more. Because, obviously football is completely different than every other sport because you play 16 games. But football is number one because every game is huge.
Yeah, you watch every week.
Right. So, So maybe you're on something there. Maybe a shorter season would be better. But let's talk Sixers. They finished this week. They're undefeated in the preseason. No matter what, no matter how it went. And both games to me were kind of, polar opposites in a way. The first game, Embiid went off. The starters looked really good. And the second game, it was more of, Embiid was out. He didn't play, and the starters didn't look as good. But the bench played really well, and they beat Indiana. Now, I want to say before we talk about this at all, it's just preseason. It's not that big of a deal. Now, there are definitely, in my opinion, there's things that we can take away from it, which we're going to talk about. But at the end of the day, it's just preseason. Ben Simmons played 26 minutes. He didn't play 35, 36 like he usually does. Players aren't playing the minutes they usually do, and some guys are getting more minutes they usually do too. So, you take it with a grain of salt. So,
right. Just to build off that, I have I kind of categorize when it comes to preseason. I kind of in my head will try to categorize things in two different sections. So there's things that are actually relevant in the preseason, like the preseason stats, and then there's like wins, losses, points, shooting percentages, stuff like that. You can't expect, for example, a perfect example of this was Seth Curry, and we'll get into this. You can't expect him in the preseason to just come in shooting 35% and stuff. But what you do look for is like the things that matter in the preseason, which is how we structure the team, what the paces that we're playing with. You can see, coaches use this time to make those adjustments and do little experiments on, different lineup orientations and stuff like that. So there are things that you can definitely take away. But I feel like a lot of people start to mix those two in terms of like, oh, this person only put up X, Y, and Z in their points, rebounds, and assists. And it's like, well, that doesn't matter. We're more so looking for which plays that person ran or how, where he was, where Doc Rivers is putting him off the ball and stuff like that. We'll get into all that, but there are good takeaways, and then there are takeaways that people are trying to come to conclusions about that are just so far off because it is, like you said, only preseason.
Right. And like one thing for me is like you see people talking about Tyrese Maxey, and Maxey he has a lot of potential, and I'm very excited. He looks really good. He's quick. Do you see the athleticism? I think he had one move to the hoop last night, drove the lane, and he finished with a nice layup. I think he got an and one. He looked really good. He looks like he could be a real piece for this team. But the people are saying like, get Thibault out of here now, blah blah blah. Yeah. Well, Thibault, people were raving about Thibault last year, saying, well, why isn't he on the all-rookie team, blah, blah, blah. Look at his defense. Like, he's a player. And now people are like, oh, well, it's trade Thibault and blah, 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 and this and that.
Maxey's playing against players on two-way contracts. Like, he's playing the third string.
Exactly. So this is my whole point of why it's preseason. I get it, but it's preseason. So I'm going to wait. I think you can start really – making evaluations of teams like 10 games into the season. You could say, all right, we've seen them for 10 games. It's been about a month now. Now we can make evaluations. You can't make evaluations off even 2-3 games of the regular season because we beat Boston opening night last year and we're like, oh my God, this team's a defensive beast and we only gave up blah, blah, blah. And, and we knew what that team was,
right.
A good amount of games into the season. So, So now we have Doc Rivers now. Brett Brown is no longer here. I know you are the biggest fan of Brett Brown.
That listens to your podcast will know that.
Yeah, exactly. That's noted. I wasn't as hard on Brett as you were, but at the end of the day, it works out. Brett's no longer here, and we get a better coach in Doc Rivers. He has an NBA title. The LA Clippers weren't relevant until he was the coach there, and Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan came. And so Doc Rivers is a very good coach. Maybe he doesn't get as much respect as he should. The Clippers had a lot of expectations last year. I get it. But, Doc needs to get a little more respect. And I feel like the Philly fans are really, really giving him that respect. And, we're excited because, a lot of people didn't like Brett and whatnot. But, what do you like about Doc's system, and what have you seen so far from the team under Doc?
Well, just to build off of what you said about Doc, he is a champion. And, everyone wants to say, oh, he had a super team. He hasn't won one since. He's been, he's famous for losing 3-1 leads in the playoffs. You're not going to take away someone's championship. I was assured when Doc Rivers came in because, one, he's the type of coach to be the face of your franchise, right? So there's some franchises where the player is the face of the franchise, and then there's some where the organization is. Kind of like Greg Popovich, for example. Despite having 3 different Hall of Famers on the team, that was Popovich's Spurs. And then, Doc Rivers was the same way with Boston and their big 3. I was also assured because when you brought up the old Clippers, one person you actually forgot to mention was Blake Griffin.
Right.
So Blake Griffin is a big power forward type of player who's quick and could not shoot the ball. And that sounds kind of familiar, right? Except Ben Simmons has better handles, can distribute. Ben Simmons is like an infinitely better version of Blake Griffin at that point in his career. At that point, I'm not going to compare him to Blake's peak.
They're different players at the end of the day.
Yeah, but the idea was that he made Blake Griffin an all-star without a jump shot. And he made, I don't want to say he made Chris Paul, but Chris Paul was one of the best guards in the league. And in terms of facilitating and moving the ball, their offense was extremely efficient. And he kind of has a mixture of those two. He has that Chris Paul type of gauging the offense and probing and stuff with Ben Simmons, but he also has the issue a forward that can't shoot with Ben Simmons. So it'll be interesting to see how he works with that. But I don't think any of this is going to be too like different for him. You know, he also made Rondo an All NBA player. So I like his system. So far from what I'm seeing in the playoffs, I like it. There's a lot of movement off the ball, which is something that we didn't see last year with Brett. So one thing that was a huge factor in when we said like Ben Simmons is not a half court point guard. That's because we had him coming up to the half court and then everyone just standing still. I saw just in the first couple of games a ton of off ball screens. I saw a lot of very high pick and rolls. We barely ran a pick and roll last year. I saw a lot of high pick and rolls. I saw a lot of handoffs. So like Ben Simmons would come in, hand the ball off to Seth Curry at the top of the key, and then go post up like Blake Griffin would. You know what I mean? Like at the four, right at the elbow, and have Embiid on the weak side. And that's beautiful. That's exactly what we want. That's something I've been saying since before the All-Star break last year was we need to have Ben Simmons play the power forward role when they're blocking the half-court offense by him. And so, you know, all that movement and stuff I think is going to be great for us for both big players.